back to the 305K. I'm Jackson Lang with my co-host Tucker Hobart. We're here to debrief the Brazil Grand Prix, which was awesome. Max Verstappen had one of the drives of the year, which he might be turning
hmm
into a yearly tradition after winning the race from P17 last year. We had Kimi Antonelli, who we blatantly dissed on the
Yeah,
podcast, finishing P2, and then Lando Norris coming out and taking a very solid control of this championship.
yeah. I must say that Lando Norris has effectively put himself not only in the driver's seat, but pretty far out in front in the championship race. I think it's going to take, a DNF for Verstappen to really have a chance. And Piastri pretty much looks like he's hoping to hang on to P2, not even questioning Lando up
Yeah.
in P1. Perhaps it'll change. That's really the closest we have. It's still not too crazy of a difference in points, but it's a pretty large
Yeah.
sum of points to get over the next few races, especially with the way the season's been going. I do think Max Verstappen, last year he won from P17 on the grid. This year he went from the pit lane all the way up to the podium without any red flags. I would argue that that performance, that drive, was more impressive to me than the P17 to a win, which is obviously splitting hairs, the two unbelievable performances. But I do think it's important to acknowledge that last year, Lando Norris kind of claimed that some of it was luck, and he didn't really have a point in my opinion. But there was a little bit of, you know, it kind of went his way in that race. This race
Mhm.
was straight up. He just had that good of pace. He just
Yeah.
tore through the field.
Yeah. It was impressive. I think there was
hmm
like a restart in the mix there because of Bortoletto's crash early. Um
Yes, but he pitted under that safety car, but the tire
uh
offset was still kind of unbelievable. He ended up
oh,
stopping
absolutely.
uh
Twice.
twice or three times, I think. But
I think
he stopped near
twice.
the end as well. So I really don't think he had that much of an advantage because of that. And he only stopped because he had a puncture on his tires.
Yeah.
And I think it was really just showing that, the hard tires weren't doing well. People were really struggling on the hard tires. So we wanted to get onto the mediums. But it was unbelievable to watch. I mean, he was literally overtaking someone um every lap or every other lap, which is something that's you don't really see, and especially around this track, there were a lot of people who
Yeah.
were struggling to get those overtakes done, and Max would just sit right behind going into the final couple corners, and then just take him into turn
Turn
one,
and
whether they
burn.
forced him outside or forced him off the racing line to the inside. He was just unstoppable.
Yeah. It just I don't have the words for it. It is so impressive that he's able to just do these drives. The fact that he is able to go from the pit lane to a podium is almost unheard of. I mean, I think I read the last time it happened was in 2014, which
Yep.
that's 11 years ago. This doesn't
Yeah.
happen every year. This doesn't happen every weekend. This happens once in a decade almost. So it's like
Yeah. I think the
y-
stat was that it was the second, or sorry, it was the third or fourth time it's happened in F1 history.
yeah, it's seriously impressive. It just doesn't happen. And it just shows you what a once in a generation driver Max Verstappen is.
Yep.
And it was incredible. I think that's like kind of the only way to put it is just incredible, unexpected, but kind of awesome, honestly.
Yeah, it is great to watch. I think that the other thing about this weekend is that, we can talk about that drive for Max Verstappen, but he still lost ground in the championship because Lando Norris just put out a clinic in this race. I mean, over the
Yeah.
entire course of the weekend, sprint pole, sprint win, regular qualifying pole, race win. He led almost every lap up until Verstappen was race leader for a little bit, but it really felt that Lando Norris was never in a position besides being the one chased the entire weekend. It
Yeah.
was really dominant. And I think that for all of my complaining about him, he has really proved himself this season in the back eight races or so, which is, to be fair, when we kind of said it was
This
going to
has
have
to
to
be,
happen for him.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was now or never. And you're completely right. And we were talking about it, and we're just like, I mean, whenever we kind of started up our podcast and it was like the Netherlands, we were just like, there is no way Lando Norris is able to come back, completely talking down on his name. And then he just, he he kicked into a higher gear and
Yep.
really showed us that he is honestly, I hate to say it, but fit to win this championship. And the other end of the spectrum is Oscar Piastri has just fallen off a complete cliff. And I keep kind of cursing people with a big flop. I called a crash of his. Granted, he finished P5 in the race, which wasn't awful, but he
Hmm.
crashed out in the sprint in what was a weird sprint in a very weird
Very
corner.
weird. Yeah. I
Um,
think
if you want
it
to go
is
in depth on
important to
that.
talk about this because this is a very weird. It was a very weird situation to watch, and I honestly watched it and I watched the replays, and I was sitting there kind of thinking, what just happened? Because it seemed
Yeah.
really innocuous, and then all of a sudden, three cars went off of the same corner in the span
Yeah.
of about 30 seconds. Um, so the thing about these tracks is that although at the time of the race it was dried off, the track itself, the racing line was dry. The rain from the morning kind of sits. There's grass around the track. And for example, the grass is still very wet. Obviously, it doesn't have the same drainage as the track itself, but the speed curbs that go on the side of the track
Cold
also
water.
hold water pretty well. And so generally, you'll see drivers avoid those in the wet conditions. And specifically, um, at turn three, there are speed curbs in the inside of that corner. And traditionally, you want to hold pretty close to those. But in the rain, you don't want to dip a tire in there and, get moisture on your tire and then lose a little bit of grip. In that corner, one of the drivers in front, I believe it was maybe Kimi or maybe Lando, got a tire in there and sprayed
Lando
some
did.
water out onto the track. Yeah. And so
And Kimmy called it though, which I thought was
yeah, which is pretty
really
unbelievable.
interesting.
Yeah. Kimi Antonelli straight on the radio saying, water on the track. Like he called the incident for Piastri, but you just see Piastri going off of that corner and not a crazy. Obviously, sometimes there's an incident and it's just snap of oversteer and he's in the wall, whatever. And then behind him, off goes Hulkenberg, and behind him, off goes Colapinto. It's very weird. You don't see that, and especially
Yeah,
now,
no.
it feels like drivers don't make that many mistakes.
Yeah.
And it was just that little bit of water. It changes up how the tires work. It changes up how the cars work. You have to make tremendous correction, and it's really difficult for those guys to do that, even though they are the pinnacle of motorsport. So
Hmm.
very strange. And then there were, you know, further incidents in that race, and I think that it was really interesting. And I think it was kind of like Austin, where the sprint really delivered, and it kind of got you all excited for the race. And the race this time actually did deliver.
Yeah, it was a great weekend, honestly.
Hmm.
I feel like some of the races in this back half, maybe besides like a Singapore and I guess Austin as well, but like it's been pretty awesome racing this back half. And I mean, I want to
Absolutely.
almost credit some of it to the championship being like close as it has been. It's like you're kind of really just watching and you're like, there's something to watch for right now.
Yeah.
And like Mexico, there's just stuff and you want to watch and watch and watch. And it's just been great. And Brazil delivered completely. Like we predicted. I mean, we were both ecstatic for this race.
Yeah.
And it was great.
Yeah, I do think that it gives a little bit of leeway to the races when you have something like this championship battle where even in a race like Singapore, Austin, for example, where it's not too much overtaking going on, not necessarily the most exciting race up and down the field, not too many incidents or whatever, having that storyline going on with who's in P1, P2, P4, whatever, between the championship fight is
Mhm.
a story in itself and does create drama
Yeah.
on its own. So it doesn't need to be, the most unbelievable race every time, but it's shifting the championship one way or another. And I really do hope that Lando Norris has like a peaceful DNF in Vegas because I do want to see this championship come down to the wire. And I think it would really be a disappointment if we went
Yeah.
into Qatar and crowned a champion.
Yeah. It really would be a disappointment. I, I don't know. I feel like that definitely could happen. Though 2 years
Yep.
ago, Lando crashed hard in Vegas. And if you don't think he's thinking about that the tiniest bit during the weekend, he's like probably
Yeah.
worried about that. I also like we'll get into it whenever we preview the race, but that Red Bull gonna be good there. It is full
As
of
will the
straights.
Mercedes.
Yeah, absolutely. It might be it's gonna be a harder race for
Yeah.
McLaren for sure.
And speaking of the Mercedes, the reason why I say that they'll be good in Vegas is because it is a night race, and generally that car comes alive when the temperatures kind of drop. And we did see that this weekend as well. And the Ferrari was kind of off the pace the whole time, although Leclerc did put in a good drive in qualifying to get his
Yeah.
car up. But usually the Mercedes car has been very good. For example, in the rain because the temperature drops, and we did see that this weekend. A very good drive by Kimi, his highest finish of the season. Even though I predicted him to be a big flop, which was not my best moment, but him and
Yeah, it was
Russell
a
as
bit of a
well,
rough
two
week for
very good
prediction.
drives,
Yeah,
and getting them up and securing a pretty decent lead in the constructors over Ferrari and Red Bull,
yeah, for sure. Um,
and
I guess we'll
coming at
cut it.
Ferrari's expense as well.
Yeah, that was brutal. You texted me
Mhm.
during the race, just said
Yeah. I would like to take us back to a time last year at the start of the season. And I was sitting in an art class and the assignment was to like paint good news. And my brilliant idea was that I painted the Ferrari car and said, well, the Ferrari's gonna be good this year.
that's actually really impressive.
They are not good this year. And I think if anything, I'm blaming this as the jinx. And it's
That
been
you
sitting
know,
on my desk all year. And all I can reflect on is the fact that every race has been more disappointing than the last. And it all comes back to March when I decided to paint this as the good news that I was going to see for the year. And it went the
hey,
opposite direction. So,
we might have to do another livery ranking next episode because I'm pretty sure Ferrari has one. I'm sure other cars are gonna have some. So it
yeah,
might be the second edition of the livery rankings for the 305K. We have Yuki P17.
yeah.
That's just unacceptable. I'm like,
Yeah, he
there's
was,
nothing.
him and Kimmy, I was kind of picking between for my big flop, and I decided to go Kimmy.
We
And that was
pick
a really big
Yuki
mistake.
so much for our big
Yeah,
flop. It's like,
he's the easiest pick for big flop. I did want to
yeah,
touch on the fact that Gabriel Bortoleto had just about the worst home weekend you could possibly have, and one of the most anticipated home weekends of the
yeah.
season. Um, if you don't remember, if you didn't watch,
German P6.
uh, doesn't qualify well for the sprint. In the sprint, he is one of the biggest crashes this year, if not the biggest crash, besides maybe Colapinto's in Suzuka. But he went for a move up the inside into turn one from very far back on one of the last laps. And his rear brakes locked and sent him into the inside wall. And that collision was, I think, about 20 G. Um, but from
No, I
there,
saw 50.
well, the second hit
Oh,
was 50
sorry.
because
Yeah, my bad.
yeah, he ricochets off the wall and pretty much flies into the outside barrier. It was a really rough hit, and it was so rough
It,
that he couldn't qualify for the race because, as you might know, qualifying takes place about 2 hours after the sprint.
yeah,
So they couldn't fix up his car in time. And then during the race, lap one, he
crash.
just gets squeezed to the outside by a Stroll and goes into the wall. And it was a very like minimal incident, which is nice compared to the one that happened in the day before.
But
But
it's your home race, man. That's about
yeah,
as bad as
he's
it
gonna
could
have a
go.
sour taste in his mouth. But yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty
it was
brutal.
really sad.
I mean, at least I think he's what signed for next year or probably gonna
I
be.
believe so.
I
And
I, I would be shocked if they got rid of him.
I was thinking about this because, for example, in the Mexican Grand Prix a few years ago, there was an incident with Checo and Leclerc, and Leclerc kind of got booed mercilessly by the Mexican faithful because of that. And I was looking at the incident, and I was thinking, oh man, whoever was the reason for that, whoever is involved in it, is going to get booed mercilessly by all the Brazilian
Yeah.
fans. And then I realized it was Lance Stroll. And I realized that there's probably not that much difference in how he would have been booed anyways. So there's a little bit of silver lining in there for him.
So I'm gonna use that point to touch up on what I was gonna bring up. And Haas are 2 points back from Aston Martin from P7 and 8, and it's all thanks to Ollie Behrman. That dude, we haven't said a word about it. He was in P6 again. Like
Yeah.
he has had two spectacular races in a row. And I just feel like we got to give him a bit of credit because that's impressive, man.
Yeah, there were a lot of really good drives actually from this race. And he was one who I actually noticed that yesterday. And I meant to bring it up. And I'm glad that you spurred it because no one talked about this. You know, we talked
No,
about Lando driving away from the field, Antonelli
Max,
P2, his career highs,
Max.
Max pit lane to P3. Ollie Behrman also finished P6. And part of it is that it's starting to become commonplace. You know,
Yeah.
he's taken that Haas way up. And Esteban Ocon, I have to be honest, is just getting outperformed and outperformed.
Which is a
And
shame. I think I picked them for my points, which is really.
yeah, you picked Ocon, so you were close, but not quite. I do see the fact that there is talk about Behrman securing that Ferrari seat after Hamilton leaves. And my first reaction to that news was kind of negative, was kind of
Yeah.
pessimistic, but he is showing that maybe he is cut out for that job, and that is a good opportunity for Ferrari and him in the future, especially being, driver two under Leclerc. So
Yeah, no, I really am starting to think that this entire podcast is just a jinx on everything because we
yeah,
were like talking about Behrman. We're like, he's been really bad if we look at our like full driver rankings from that like hour and a half long first episode. But
yeah,
like
which
we were
is a
talking about how
long way
he's
to
like
watch
he's been
back. I'm not sure.
mediocre or nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah, and all of a
he's been
sudden he's
unbelievable.
like driving really, really well. It came out of nowhere, honestly.
Yeah, I think what's really impressive to me is that he has turned it around, like you said. And we're gonna have to do a reaction video at the end of the year to our
Yeah.
predictions because they were very poor. And I've noticed that the first week that I predicted Leclerc to be back on the podium, he gets knocked out from an incident that he wasn't even involved in. Um,
Yeah, you might
and
want to touch up
I
on
just
that.
yeah. And when I predicted a big flop, he came and went on the podium. So my predictions are kind of just all over the place. I said Max was gonna have a dominant weekend, and he kind of did, but not really. So
Nah. I
I'm
know.
glad there's someone else doing my predictions next week. I will say that
Yeah, that's true. We're gonna have the Silent Sisters on, which should just be that's gonna be chaotic.
it's
Let's
gonna be
just
chaos.
yeah, it'll be
6 people
fun,
on a
but
show is always chaos.
yeah, they're gonna be fun. They don't know any wheel at all, so. I was texting
They'll
Maddie.
study
She
up over the
goes,
next week.
I'm asking my friends." I
And they'll
said,
still do
"Sounds
better
good."
than me probably.
Yeah.
Um, so well, we will see, and
Oh
it'll be
man.
nice to be back in the U.S. for that race. It is a
Yeah,
night race, which is
okay.
pretty
I'm
cool.
gonna rant about Vegas real quick, and I'll rant more next episode. I cannot believe we have to wake up at 1 a.m. to watch that race, and it's in our own country. That is so
I thought they made it
stupid.
11 this year. I could be wrong.
I don't know. Even so, we should not be
It was
waking
it
up
was it
that
was
late.
11 last year, and it was awful. Yeah, 11 p.m. is when the race is this year, so it's better.
Local or this
Um,
or Eastern?
Eastern.
Oh,
They
that's at
changed it
least nice. I can stay
last
up
year.
for
Last
that.
year it was 11. It was 11 local, and it was like a
Yeah,
2 a.m. race start. It was
yeah. I could. I think I fell
complete.
asleep during the
Yeah,
race.
yeah. I like was like, oh man, I'm gonna DVR it, and then I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna stay up. And then I was like exhausted the next week because I was up at like 3 a.m. watching Max Verstappen win the championship. So
Oh yeah, that's right. No, because I woke up and I see 1-2 Mercedes. I'm like, what?
yeah,
It,
what?
it
Anyways,
was
so
it'll be a
it'll be
fun
nice to
episode.
be able to watch that one on time this year.
Yeah,
And
on time's a bit of a stretch, but at least we won't be like just like holding our eyes open. Like,
yeah,
oh man, all right, it'll be
and
a
we
good
have a
weekend.
great episode.
It's gonna be a great
We have the
episode.
Sideline Sisters on again, so stay tuned. We're super excited to have them on our turf this time, and we will see you guys